Hi, everybody. I'm so honored. This is Adrian, and last time I was in Calgary, I was blessed, and I mean that in the sincere meaning of that word, to have a naming ceremony. Because I embrace all cultures, and there's just, oh my gosh, and I understand it just doesn't happen to everybody. And you were praying for days.
Yeah.
Now, your title is?
I'm the strategist for Aboriginal Initiatives with the Calgary Homeless Foundation.
Okay. And so my name is Be-You-Mahk-Ah in Blackfoot, which means travels far, which I drove from Los Angeles, so it's a pretty good name that fits. So I haven't quite done the Aboriginal story yet because I have to learn so much. And one of the things is by listening to people.
Yeah.
So can you tell me what the issues, the challenges, what's going on with Aboriginal homelessness?
A lot of the issues stem from historical experience, historical trauma, the residential school experience, the reserves, and the disconnect between living on reserve and off reserve, the disparity between wages, income, jobs, and because of the historical trauma, which was identified in the different studies that were done by the government. And when we look today, there are a number of people that are walking wounded and lost and have fallen through the cracks.
Can you talk just briefly, because a lot of people, I didn't know about the schools, the residential schools. So I know it's a couple of decades old, but we're still recovering from that.
Yeah, the residential schools were set up, well, there was industrial schools, business schools, and then they kind of found their go with the residential schools. So every Aboriginal child from 6 to 16 had to go to these schools and had to stay there for the majority of the year and majority of the week. So they'd be there from Sunday to Friday or Saturday. And if they didn't feel that you had the aptitude for learning, you'd do the chores, you'd do other stuff. And at one time, the senior superintendent of Indian Affairs had actually declared that he felt that fully 50% of the people going to the schools would not benefit from their learning, because that's how many were dying by the time they were 18.
And what it was doing, it was separating from family.
Yeah, it separated the families, so the people that went through there didn't learn how to be parents, didn't learn their language. They'd be a lot, 40 to 70% of different schools were sexually abused. And from there, a lot of suicides had come out, and addictions.
Wow. What else? I mean, what do I need to know as I go and I meet people? I've done a couple of interviews. Your culture is just so welcoming and nice.
Yeah,
you know, what do I need to know? What do other people need to know in Canada that are trying to help Aboriginals?
Well, as I had shared at the summit when I had met you, when we look at people, the challenges that they have, be they Aboriginal, be they non-Aboriginal, whatever addictions, whatever challenges they have, homeless, non-homeless, at the end of the day, they're people.
Right.
And so just meeting them as a person and going from there. So a cup of tea opens a lot of doors.
Awesome. I like that. Gosh, anything I should add? Anything that you would like to say that is important?
I think one of the biggest parts are those that are no longer here walking with us, especially with the homeless population. There's doing outreach. There was this one individual that actually went back to different places and was asked, do you remember my brother? Do you remember my brother? And it was his street brother, his buddy, because this person had had a number of rough experiences and knew that he wouldn't be here much longer, and was telling us that, what's the use? Like, no one's going to know I was here a year from now. And so his street brother had actually gone to different agencies and said, do you remember my brother? Do you remember this guy? Because he didn't want him to have not existed. And so that's what we try to do, the Sisters in Spirit, a lot of initiatives, is to recognize and just to acknowledge that, they were here. Yeah, they mattered.
Wow. That is so powerful. I know in the States we do a yearly memorial for those that have died. And I only know that one actual homeless shelter that has their names in this gorgeous monument,
Yeah.
so they're remembered always.
Yeah.
And we need to do more of that because nobody should die on the streets.
Yeah.
Nobody should die not being remembered with their
Yeah.
story being told.
Yeah, there was one person I had actually visited her office, and she had on her bulletin board a number of the memorials from the services that she attended, but also artwork and drawings and notes, just to say, yeah, they mattered, yeah, they were a person, yeah, they were here.
So I also understand that often people will leave the reservations and come into the city, try to find work,
Yeah.
and they're not necessarily accepted coming back.
There are those challenges, like even in the late 80s, they were looking because there was more people that were moving for education, for health, for different opportunities. And at that time, there was a big challenge between like who's responsible, who pays. So if you're on reserve, it's the federal government. Off reserve is the municipal. And there were some agreements, tripartite agreements between levels of government and on the reserve. And unofficially, it was, well, go back to the reserve and they'll help you. So even though officially,
Right,
So
and that doesn't always work.
yeah,
It doesn't always work
Yeah.
because in homelessness, the Aboriginal population is definitely one of the biggest populations.
yeah. And if you look at on reserve, you look at the water, you look at the housing. Like I remember growing up in my grandpa's house, and we'd have to put blankets there because you could see outside where the door was. And we'd have to really try to embrace it and keep going. This is a modern house, built 73. And when they had actually done the renovations, all the insulation, and his room was in the northwest corner, and the insulation had fallen, so there was only half in the room. And then you look at, like in Canada, one of the big things was Walkerton for water that that you can't drink and water that's been bad. And they estimated at one point between 40 and 60% of the reserves had water worse than Walkerton.
Wow.
But that's not in the news.
Wow. Right.
Yeah.
A lot of it's not
Yeah.
being told.
Yeah.
But anybody should not be homeless, no matter what their
Yeah.
culture is.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's truly an honor. One of the highlights of my life is the naming ceremony.
Cheers.
I mean that sincerely.
Cheers. Well, I'd like to actually just say a little bit on there, like as from my background in Mexico, and then my experience was with the forces, and then we had gone back 2005, offered prayers for all those who didn't come home, not just the Blackfoot, not just Aboriginal, but everybody. We went to Langemark, the German graveyards, and offered prayers for them. And so that's one of the rights that was bestowed upon me, that to recognize when those people come along. And so that's what your name means. Aside from the literal travels you've done, it's like by creating that awareness, you've helped others travel far in their knowledge, in their experience. And for those that have been lost to the regular people in society,
Wow.
you've brought them forward. So you've helped them travel to a point of like seeming non-existence to recognition as people through this.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I do. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Thank
that's
you.
the travel.
Thank
the
you so
out-of-body
much.
travel. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.